Hello and welcome back to Tidbit of Torah. Since my family adopted a rescue dog, a golden retriever named Betty, a few months ago, I feel like I've understand guilt on a whole new level. It is quite difficult to leave the house, maybe even impossible, with that slobbery tongue and the wagging tail and that look of, why are you possibly leaving me? And not feel tremendous guilt every time I go to work. But the truth is, we all carry around guilt, whether that's for not spending enough time with our kids as we might want, not being as present with our aging parents or coworkers who might need us. It is part of life to hold guilt. And that is one of the reasons why I appreciate this week's Torah portion so much. Parshat Tzav from the book of Vayikra, or Leviticus, the third book of the Torah, because it helps us figure out what to do about all that Jewish guilt. So we read about the animal sacrifices, and there's a number of different kinds of sacrifices that were in the sacrificial system that the Israelites had in the wilderness. And one of them is the Asham, which was the guilt offering. We read in the book of Leviticus, it says, verse number 1, chapter 7, V'zot Torat ha'asham kodesh kedoshim hu. This is the Torah of the guilt offering, or the ritual, we might say, of the guilt offering, and it is most holy. What do we learn from the Asham? Well, we learn that one of the ways that we can move on and live a life of holiness and according to our values is to do something about the guilt we have. In the time of the Israelites, you would be able to actually be released of your guilt by turning that guilt into action through the sacrifice of a ram. So one who is suspected or knows that they are guilty of a wrongdoing, either by commission or omission, brings a ram without a blemish, to a priest at the altar. And sections of the animal are burned, while other sections are actually set aside to be cooked and eaten by the priests. This is what Rabbi Abraham Joshua Heschel, a 20th century rabbi, called a mobilization of the heart, turning our guilt into action. I think there is incredible wisdom in this idea, to be able to not just feel guilty, for example, for not being able to spend more time with our kids or sending them to preschool from 7:30 in the morning to 6:30 at night, or whatever you need to do to be able to function in the world and in your profession, but to be able to actually turn our guilt into action, put away our cell phones, and to be present with our kids when we're there, or scheduling a play date with scheduling a special date with our parents to go out to lunch, or grandparents, and to be able to have it be a really meaningful time, or a friend, or whoever it is that you feel guilty for not being more present for in your life, to be able to channel that guilt into productive action. We don't have a lot of resources that are even as valuable as our time. And I think this Torah portion is telling us that we can actually deal with the guilt we feel by making choices about what we do with our action and how we spend our time. And that helps us to build meaningful, holy relationships in our lives. In fact, the Hebrew word for sacrifice is korban, which comes from the Hebrew root kuf resh bet, which means, or karov, which means to draw close. And so what do we do what does the sacrificial system actually mean? It means coming close, building a relationship, and removing our guilt through this holy act. And so my hope for all of us is that we can find productive ways to transform our guilt into action by leaning in, becoming closer in the times that we are available. And when we are not able to be there every second of the day for our golden retrievers or our children or our aging parents or anyone else, let's be a little bit more gracious to ourselves, knowing that we are doing the best we can with limited time and resources to be able to juggle such a complexity of things in a time when we are busier than ever with the advent of technology and so many other things that makes the balance of work and family and life's responsibility really challenging. So let's be gracious to ourselves and find ways in which we can individually and collectively transform our guilt into action, like the ancient Israelites, minus the animal sacrifice. All right, Shabbat Shalom. Wishing you all a meaningful, productive week.